A new and significant twist in the controversy surrounding Herschel Walker, the GOP's anti-abortion Senate nominee in Georgia. The woman who claims she had an abortion with Walker now says she's also the mother of one of his many children. In a follow-up bombshell report by the Daily Beast, the woman is calling Walker's denials ridiculous. She told the publication, "Sure, I was stunned, but I guess it also doesn't shock me. But maybe there are just so many of us that he truly doesn't remember." But then again, if he really forgot about it, that says something too. The woman says she wants to remain anonymous to protect her family and the privacy. According to the Daily Beast, Herschel Walker has previously publicly acknowledged that that woman's son is in fact his child. But Walker continues to insist he has no idea who the accuser is. Here's what he said this morning on Hugh Hewitt's radio show.
The anonymous woman has now also alleged that she had a child by you. Your response?
I'll say the same thing I said, that, I know this is untrue. I know it's untrue, and they keep telling me things like that, and it's totally untrue. And I'm not sure why that will be told. I know nothing about any woman having an abortion. I hate to have been born again, but I have a new life. And I've been moving forward, and if that had happened, I would have said it, because there's nothing to be ashamed of there. People have done that, but I know nothing about it. And if I knew about it, I would be honest and talk about it.
Former President Trump and many prominent Republicans, including Senators Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, and Rick Scott, have rushed to defend Herschel Walker. Of course, flipping the Senate seat in Georgia is crucial for Republicans if they hope to take back control of the Senate during the midterms. But some cracks are starting to form in the GOP at the state level. To wit, Georgia's Republican governor, or lieutenant governor, I should say, Jeff Duncan, was on CNN last night. He told Don Lemon Walker's baggage is becoming unbearable.
If we're being intellectually honest, Herschel Walker won the primary because he scored a bunch of touchdowns back in the 80s, and he was Donald Trump's friend. And now we've moved forward several months on the calendar, and that's no longer a recipe to win.
Well, Walker's own son is a conservative influencer who you've likely heard could accuse his father of flat-out lying about the abortion and other controversies. After the latest report from the Daily Beast, Christian Walker tweeted, "Wear a condom. Damn." Let's turn to Greg Bluestein, politics reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution newspaper. Greg, thanks as always. You were at Walker's rally. How's he handling in this? And does your reporting indicate his supporters care about this?
He denied the reports, as he has been doing all week at the rally. He read from a scripted statement from a couple pieces of paper after his rally. He gave his standard stump speech before to an audience that mostly was shift workers at a lumber yard 3 hours east of Atlanta. So a very bizarre campaign event. But I've noticed from Republicans kind of falling into three different buckets. There's the crowd that doesn't believe these reports at all. There's the crowd that believes them and doesn't care about them. Says that we believe the reports, but we're still going to vote for Herschel Walker because they want to vote for a Republican-controlled Senate. And then there's probably a smaller crowd, but very influential crowd of Republicans who are already on the fence about Herschel Walker, who are already indicating they could end up withholding their vote from him or voting for Senator Raphael Warnock, and that could decide this election in November.
Greg, we played that very blunt statement by the lieutenant governor, the Republican lieutenant governor. Is he speaking for the governor and the party in Georgia?
He is not speaking for the party in Georgia, but he is reflecting a sort of mainstream Republican bent there. There are a lot of mainstream Republicans who were never comfortable with the idea of Herschel Walker from the get-go. These are the Republicans who either backed one of his primary rivals or were concerned that he didn't have the chops right now, that basically his campaign would be blowing up in October, November, and they're worried that their predictions are ringing true. Governor Kemp has taken a slightly different, or I should say a very different stance. He is supporting the ticket, but he is not committing to holding any sort of public rallies with Herschel Walker. And this has been going on long before the Daily Beast reports. I mean, those two have been sort of at loggerheads for a while now.
I heard reporters ask Senator Raphael Warnock, who's a preacher at Dr. King's church, about this controversy, and he called the allegations disturbing, but wouldn't go any farther than that. It feels like his tact is to just watch the bullets fly and stay out of the way.
Yeah, kind of like eating popcorn. Look, Democrats are worried about a boomerang effect. They don't want to kind of wade into this controversy right now because Republicans are having their own internal conflict as it is. They don't need Democrats' help to egg it on. So I was with Senator Warnock on Monday when the first Daily Beast story broke, as he was speaking to an audience in Dunwoody, Georgia, in the suburbs. And I asked him about it, and he said, look, I'm just focused on my stance and my stance on abortion, and that's where I'm going to stick to right now. So he's kind of steering clear, letting Republicans duke it out.
Greg Bluestein from AJC, good of you. Thank you.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.